The first time I realized my handwriting could ruin my life, I was 13. I remember the way the ink bled through the paper, the way my stepmom's perfume lingered in the air, sweet and sharp, as she waved a note in front of my father's face. "Look at this," she hissed, her voice trembling with manufactured concern. "She's not well. She needs help." My father's eyes flickered over the page, his jaw tightening, his knuckles white around the mug of coffee he never finished. I stood in the doorway, invisible, watching the scene unfold like a play I hadn't auditioned for. But that's not where this story ends. In fact, that's not even where it begins. If you're here, you probably know what it's like to have your truth twisted, to have someone rewrite your story while you're still living it. Maybe you've been called crazy for seeing things too clearly. Maybe you've been pushed out of your own home by someone who smiled while they locked the door behind you. If any of that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Before I take you into the courtroom, before I show you what justice looks like when it finally arrives, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one, and your stories remind me why I kept fighting, even when it felt like I was fighting alone. Now, let's go back to the night everything changed. It was raining, of course. It always rains in stories like this, doesn't it? The kind of rain that makes the world feel smaller. The kind that drowns out your thoughts and makes you wonder if anyone would hear you scream. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, clutching a letter I hadn't written, reading words I'd never said. I can't trust myself anymore. I think I'm losing my mind. Please help me. The handwriting was close enough to mine that it made my skin crawl. The signature was perfect. But the words, they were poison. My stepmom stood in the doorway, arms folded, lips curled into a smile that never reached her eyes. "You should pack your things," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Your father and I think it's best if you spend some time away. For everyone's safety." I wanted to scream, to tear the letter in half, to run to my father and beg him to see the truth. But I knew how this would play out. I'd seen it before, in the way he looked at her, in the way he looked through me. I packed a bag with shaking hands, stuffing clothes and books and the last photo I had of my mother into a backpack that felt heavier than it should have. My stepmom watched, her eyes cold and satisfied. "You'll thank me one day," she said as I walked past her. "You'll see this was for your own good." I didn't look back. The next few years blurred together. Couch surfing, part-time jobs, nights spent in libraries. Because they were warm and safe and no one asked questions if you kept your head down. I learned how to disappear, how to make myself small, how to survive on less than nothing. I learned that people will believe what they want to believe, especially if it makes their lives easier. But I also learned how to fight. I learned how to read between the lines, how to spot a forgery, how to build a case from scraps and shadows. I worked through high school and then through college, taking night classes and cleaning offices after midnight. Law school was a dream I barely dared to say out loud, but I chased it anyway, fueled by anger and hope and the memory of my mother's voice telling me I was stronger than I knew. I never saw my stepmom after she kicked me out. Not until yesterday. The courthouse was colder than I remembered, the marble floors echoing with footsteps and whispered secrets. I sat at the prosecution table, my hands steady, my heart pounding so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. The door opened at exactly 8 a.m., and she walked in, her heels clicking against the tile, her hair perfectly styled, her eyes scanning the room for a friendly face. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy smoothing her skirt, too busy rehearsing the story she'd told 1,000 times. But then she looked up and our eyes met. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her face. Real fear. The kind that makes your knees buckle. The kind that makes you realize the game is over. She stumbled, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide and wild. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, you can't." But I was already standing, already turning the pages of the file in front of me, already ready to speak the truth she'd spent years trying to bury. The judge called the room to order, his gavel sharp and final. My stepmom tried to compose herself, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She glanced at her lawyer, but he just looked away, his face pale and resigned. The bailiff read the charges: fraud, forgery, theft, and the words hung in the air like a storm about to break. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I felt nothing. No anger, no fear, no sadness. Just a quiet certainty that this was where I was meant to be. That every sleepless night, every tear, every moment of doubt had led me here. The trial hadn't even started, but I could see the ending written in her eyes. She knew it too. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom, each word measured and deliberate. My stepmom's lawyer shuffled papers, his eyes darting between her and the prosecution table where I sat with my team. I could feel her gaze burning into me, but I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes on the judge, my hands folded neatly, my breathing slow and steady. I'd spent years preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared me for the way it actually felt to face the person who'd tried to erase me, to stand in the light after so many years in the shadows. The first witness was called. It was the bank manager, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice that carried across the room. She described the forged signatures, the suspicious withdrawals, the way my stepmom had insisted on handling all of my late mother's accounts herself. The evidence was clear, the paper trail undeniable. My stepmom sat rigid in her chair, her lips pressed into a thin line, her hands twisting in her lap. I watched her closely, searching for any sign of the woman who'd once smiled at me across the breakfast table, who'd braided my hair and told me stories about her own childhood. But all I saw was a stranger, a woman trapped by her own lies, desperate to hold on to a life built on stolen trust. The prosecution presented the forged notes next. Each one was projected onto a screen for the jury to see. My stepmom's handwriting was almost perfect, but not perfect enough. I'd spent years studying those letters, memorizing every curve and slant, every hesitation in the ink. I'd learned to spot the differences, the tiny tells that gave her away. The expert witness explained it all, pointing out the inconsistencies, the pressure marks, the way the letters changed when she was nervous. My stepmom's face grew paler with every word. She glanced at me, her eyes pleading, but I didn't look away. I owed it to myself, to the girl she'd kicked out, to the mother she'd betrayed, to see this through. When it was my turn to take the stand, the room seemed to shrink around me. I could feel every eye on me, every breath held in anticipation. I told my story simply, without embellishment. I described the night I was forced to leave, the years I spent scraping by, the way I'd found the strength to keep going even when it felt impossible. I spoke about my mother, her kindness, her laughter, the way she'd trusted the wrong person. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just told the truth. The defense tried to rattle me, to paint me as bitter, unstable, vengeful. They brought up the forged notes, the ones that claimed I was crazy, that I couldn't be trusted. I looked at the jury and told them what it felt like to have your reality rewritten, to be gaslit by someone who was supposed to protect you. I told them about the nights I spent alone, the jobs I worked, the dreams I refused to let die. I could see the doubt flicker in their eyes, the way they leaned forward, listening. I could feel the tide turning, the truth finally breaking through the surface. When I stepped down from the stand, my legs were shaking, but my heart was steady. I glanced at my stepmom, and for a moment, I saw the girl she might have been, the girl who wanted to belong, who wanted to be loved, who was so afraid of losing everything that she'd risked it all. But then the mask slipped back into place, and she was a stranger again. The trial stretched on for hours, each piece of evidence another nail in the coffin of her lies. The prosecution laid out the timeline, the forged documents, the stolen money. The defense grew quieter, their arguments weaker, their confidence fading with every new revelation. Outside, the sky darkened, rain tapping against the courthouse windows. Inside, the tension was electric, every word charged with years of pain and betrayal. I sat with my hands folded, my eyes fixed on the judge, my mind replaying every moment that had led me here. I thought about my mother, How she'd trusted my stepmom. How she'd believed in second chances. How she'd left everything to the woman who'd promised to take care of me. I thought about the nights I spent alone, the jobs I worked, the dreams I refused to let die. I thought about the girl I used to be, the girl who'd been told she was crazy, who'd been pushed out into the world with nothing but a backpack and a stubborn hope that things would get better. And I thought about the woman I'd become, the woman who'd fought her way through law school, who'd built a life from the ashes of her old one, who'd learned that justice isn't always swift, but it is always worth fighting for. As the trial drew to a close, the judge called for a recess. My stepmom sat slumped in her chair, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her lawyer whispered to her, but she didn't respond. She looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by the weight of her own choices. I stepped outside into the hallway, the air cool and sharp against my skin. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes, letting the tension drain from my body. For the first time in years, I felt free. But I knew it wasn't over yet. The verdict still hung in the balance, the final chapter waiting to be written. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. When I returned to the courtroom, the jury was filing back in, their faces solemn, their eyes unreadable. My stepmom looked up, her face pale and drawn, her hands clenched in her lap. The judge called the room to order, his voice steady and calm. The foreman stood, holding the slip of paper that would decide everything. The room was silent, every breath held, every heart pounding. The foreman's voice was steady, but I could see the tremor in his hands as he unfolded the verdict. My stepmom's eyes were locked on him, her lips moving silently, as if she could will the words to change. The judge nodded for him to proceed, and the world seemed to hold its breath. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. The words echoed through the courtroom, bouncing off marble and wood, settling into the spaces between us. My stepmom's shoulders sagged, her face crumpling as the reality of it hit her. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. Her lawyer reached for her arm, but she pulled away, her eyes wild and desperate. The judge's gavel came down, sharp and final. "Bailiff, take the defendant into custody." The bailiff stepped forward, his hand gentle but firm on her shoulder. My stepmom's composure shattered. She turned to me, her voice breaking, pleading. "Please, you have to help me. I'm your family. I did everything for you. You can't let them do this to me." I stood, my heart pounding, my hands cold. I wanted to feel triumphant, vindicated, but all I felt was a strange, hollow ache. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fear, the regret, the years of lies unraveling all at once. I thought about all the nights I'd spent wishing for this moment, all the times I'd dreamed of seeing her brought to justice. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of something I'd never wanted to begin. The bailiff led her away, her cries echoing down the hallway. The courtroom emptied slowly, people whispering, glancing at me with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. I gathered my things, my hands shaking, my mind spinning with everything that had just happened. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was a pale, washed-out blue, the air fresh and clean. I stood on the courthouse steps, breathing it in, feeling the weight of the past begin to lift. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was free. But freedom is a strange thing. It doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, filling the empty spaces left behind by pain and loss. I walked down the steps, my shoes clicking against the stone, my heart lighter than it had been in a long time. I thought about calling my father, about telling him what had happened, about asking him why he'd let her do what she did. But I knew there were some questions that would never have answers, some wounds that would never heal. I let the thought drift away, replaced by the quiet certainty that I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's. I made my way to the small apartment I'd called home for the past few years. It wasn't much, just a single room, with a leaky faucet and a view of the alley, but it was mine. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, letting the events of the day wash over me. I thought about my mother, her laughter, her kindness, the way she'd always believed in me, even when no one else did. I thought about the promises I'd made to her, the ones I'd kept, the ones I'd broken. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who'd been called crazy, who'd been pushed out into the world with nothing but a backpack and a stubborn hope that things would get better. And I thought about the woman I'd become, the woman who'd fought her way through law school, who'd built a life from the ashes of her old one, who'd learned that justice isn't always swift, but it is always worth fighting for. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a message from my old law professor, the one who'd given me my first real chance. Saw the news. Proud of you. Drinks on me next week? I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. I typed back a quick reply, promising to meet him soon. I spent the evening answering messages from friends, colleagues, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered congratulations. Others shared their own stories of betrayal and survival. I read every word, grateful for the connection, for the reminder that I wasn't alone. As night fell, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. I thought about the future, about the cases I wanted to take, the people I wanted to help, the life I wanted to build. For the first time, the possibilities felt endless. But even as I looked forward, I couldn't help but glance back. The past has a way of clinging to you, of whispering in your ear when you least expect it. I knew there would be hard days ahead, moments when the old doubts and fears would creep back in, but I also knew I was stronger now. I'd faced the worst and survived. I'd found my voice, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the window, the city alive with possibility. I made coffee, showered, dressed in my favorite suit. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I barely recognized, a woman who'd fought for her place in the world, who'd refused to be erased. I gathered my files, slipped on my shoes, and headed out the door. The courthouse was waiting, and so was justice. I walked with my head high, my steps sure, my heart steady. When I arrived, the halls were buzzing with reporters, lawyers, people whispering about the case. I ignored them, making my way to the prosecution office, ready to start the next chapter. But as I reached for the door, I heard a familiar voice behind me. I turned, and there she was, my stepmom in handcuffs, flanked by 2 officers. She looked at me, her eyes wide and pleading, her voice trembling. "Please," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please help me." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I felt nothing but pity. She'd built her life on lies, and now she was paying the price. I shook my head, turning away, leaving her behind. I walked into the courtroom one last time, the echo of my stepmom's pleas still ringing in my ears. The judge was already seated, the bailiff standing at attention. The gallery filled with faces, some curious, some sympathetic, some just waiting for the next headline. My stepmom shuffled in, her wrists bound, her eyes red and swollen. She wouldn't meet my gaze now. The mask she'd worn for years had finally slipped, and all that was left was the truth. The prosecutor nodded at me as I took my seat. I felt the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was a reminder of everything I'd survived, every battle I'd fought to get here. The judge called the room to order, his voice calm and commanding.